Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Got Robert Griffith joining us today, former Vikings defensive back. Why? He spent 13 years in the NFL. What does that have to do with anything? Well, Harrison Smith is a safety, same position, same amount of time. Robert was done after 13 years, but he has some advice for Harrison Smith. We'll talk about all that and much more coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. And it starts now.
Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. Sun's out. Not as cold as it was in Minnesota, so I know a lot of Minnesotans are excited about this weather. I mean, it's still under 40 degrees, but it feels so much warmer coming from negative 20. But I'm Ron Johnson, your host. I got my co-host coming up next, Sam Ekstrom. But I want everybody to know, on today's show, we're going to break down the Minnesota Vikings. And when you look at these Super Bowl teams, what do the Vikings have to do to get to that level of play? We have Robert Griffith joining us in the Hang Around Johnson segment. He talks a little bit about that, talks about the longevity of Harrison Smith. He also has some advice for Harrison Smith, but he kind of talks about the coaching staff specifically, because coaches are key in order to keep consistency going to Super Bowl. So stay tuned to see what Robert Griffith, former Viking, has to say about that. But before we jump into the rest of the show, I want everybody to know Super Bowl 59 is here, people. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Just download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Again, on the app market, super simple. I've done it. I went on my phone. I have the app right here everywhere I go. So when I'm in a state that I can bet, Iowa, mainly that's where I go to place my bets, because my in-laws live there and I'm there a lot. But when I get to Iowa, I get in the app, I check out the odds, I pick my favorites. And like I said, I've done it. I've won the bonus bet. It's simple, but you just have to pay attention to what games you want to bet on. But again, first $5 bet will get you $200 in bonus bets if you win. That's FanDuel.com to get started. Well, I got Sam Ekstrom coming up joining me. And Sam, Super Bowl is set. You got Jalen Hurts, the pretty boy that every girl loves, the family man. Now he's engaged. He's dressing like, he's from a 1960s, got the cigar, got the suit, looking like Bernie Mac on Kings of Comedy. Like he's got it all. And then you got Patrick Mahomes, the guy that's been there a ton. Like it feels like this is a simulation at some point. Like it's a repeat. I feel like I just saw Taylor Swift down seeing streamers and her super surprised they're in the Super Bowl. And I can't believe, like, Sam, it's the same thing over again. Mm-hmm. But we got another Eagles Chiefs. Last time, Jason Kelce was on the other side. Now, Jason Kelce, will he wear the Travis Kelce t-shirt jersey again? Will he just be in regular clothes because he doesn't want to pick a side? I don't know. That like as a former Eagle who won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, but now your brother is going back. That's where I start there, Sam. Where do you think Jason Kelce stands? Do you think he's going to just be all out Chiefs, or do you think he's going to kind of be like unbiased?
Is he going to come out with the split jersey deal?
Right, his own jersey on one side and then his brother's on the other. Yeah, what is he? And we know the family doesn't care because they're not Eagles fans anymore. I mean, they are, but they don't have to be. So we know the family's all going to be Chiefs. But where does Jason Kelce stand on this? And his wife, because we've heard that, right? That his wife won't wear anything that's not Philadelphia. Like, remember, like she refused to wear Chiefs gear to the last Super Bowl. She wore Cincinnati gear. It's red, so it kind of fit in, but she's like diehard Philly. Like, and Jason wasn't even playing last year, and she didn't want to support the Chiefs. She wore Cincinnati Bearcats gear. So where do you think Jason Kelce, because we know where his wife stands. Like, his wife is like, no, I'm not putting Chiefs gear on. Sorry, I can't do it. But where do you think Jason Kelce stands on this? Do you think he will show up in the Travis Kelce jersey?
This is so hard because I think that, blood runs strong. Like, you got to support your siblings. I remember Peyton Manning showing up to Eli's Super Bowls and cheering for Eli and vice versa. But we talk about 13 years playing for a team with Robert Griffith and Harrison Smith. That's Kelce with Philadelphia. Like, imagine if Harrison Smith, because of his family connections, went to a Super Bowl opposing the Vikings in someone else's jersey. It's just it's a bad look. Like, it's a bad look. So I don't know what Kelce does. He's, between a rock and a hard place. I would toe the line if I was him. I would do the split jersey thing. I think in his heart, I kind of think he would be cheering for the Eagles. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think the sibling bond would win out?
Yeah, you know what? Like, 13 years is a long time. But yeah, I kind of feel like you want your brother to win. Because again, if the Eagles win, it doesn't do anything for him. Like, he doesn't get a ring. He doesn't get bonus money. He doesn't get any accolades for this. He's on ESPN just talking about both sides of the game. He's going to be at the Super Bowl week. He's going to be doing interviews. He's going to have his little podcast. He's going to have his show. I think he's going to pull for his brother. Like, because here's the thing. When the game ends, Philly wins. His wife, be a little happy for the city because they get to go home and celebrate. But your family is going back with Travis. You know what I mean? Like, that group in the suite, you're in a Chiefs suite. I don't know if Jason Kelce will get a different suite so he doesn't have like Chiefs dominated suites, but he's not. He's going to be in his brother's suite. You want to celebrate with the winners. Like, you want to be in the winning suite. You don't want your Super Bowl to end up in tears because you've been drinking all night and now you can't go from cheering for the Chiefs and being super excited, drinking all night, and then running down on the field to get some of the green and white streamers because the Eagles just won. Because that's your brother still. So when you're down on the field, you got a sad brother. And then you're going to go celebrate with guys you didn't play with. You play with them, but you didn't play with them this year or last year. So I do feel like the brother wins out. Like, I do feel like blood's thicker than water. I do feel like, and they are really close too. You know what I mean? Like, you got to do a podcast with this dude. And when you're thinking about money for their podcast, off-season podcast options and things, you want to have a champion on your show. Like, you have a Super Bowl champion on your show versus a runner-up. I just think it's better for their marketing. I think it's better for their media. I think it's better if Travis decides, because every year feels like he might retire. That would be the best way to get him out. Like, Taylor Swift's probably thinking that. Like, if he retires, he can follow me around now with all his millions, and he could and I got millions. So I got billions almost. So he can just follow me. I mean, if I'm Travis, I don't care what people say. I'm getting engaged, I'm retiring, and I'm following my wife around to just be on tour with her and be by her side whenever she needs it. If she doesn't need me, boom, I'm at the gym, I'm hooping, I'm in Cancun. When she needs me, boom, I'm on the road with her. Like, I mean, unless they really just don't get along when they're alone, I don't see the purpose when you could marry a billionaire. Like, if you've made your money, you've won multiple Super Bowls, I don't see the point anymore. But Sam, when you look at this Super Bowl matchup, so moving on to the Minnesota Vikings, when you look at the Super Bowl matchup, Chiefs, Eagles, I'm going to back up. Let's go to the final four teams. So you got Eagles, Commanders. You got Buffalo Bills, Chiefs. Let's back it up. You got Commanders, Lions. What do the Vikings need to do to get to that? Like, they didn't even get to that this year, and they were 14 wins in. And so here's my first take on this and my thought on this. I think they're there. I do. I think the question marks come around the quarterback position. So whether it is Sam Darnold coming back, whether it is J.J. McCarthy, it's the quarterback position. Because look at all the teams that struggled and lost. At some point in these games, Lions, interceptions. It wasn't all on Jared Goff, but interceptions, bad plays, bad throws. Comes down to the quarterback play. Look at Jaden Daniels. He beat the Lions with his legs. Look at Patrick Mahomes. He beat the Bills with his legs. Look at the Eagles. They just ran the ball down everybody's throat. But when you think about the quarterback being able to be an additional option, an additional threat, I feel like J.J. McCarthy is the answer to this. I don't know how healthy he's going to be after this knee thing. We'll see. But total reconstructive meniscus, Allegedly, after a year, you come back stronger and better. We will see, because all surgeries aren't guaranteed. All surgeries are not the same. Everybody gives advice, but then the surgery has to do what it's supposed to do, and the body has to do what it's supposed to do. But in order for the Vikings to get there, one, I think it's quarterback play. That's, for me, that's what it is. I don't even know if I have a number two. I just think it's quarterback play. Like quarterback play, quarterback decisions. Now, wait, again, Kevin O'Connell, I think, can help out big time in this. Like, I think we talked about this numerous times. Everybody on TV's talked about it. When I say it, some people have a problem with it, but then all of a sudden Ryan Clark and Dan Orlovsky say it, and everybody's like, oh, okay. Oh, I see what you're saying now. I get it. Because I said it first. I was the first person to tweet, Kevin O'Connell is getting out coached in this moment. People lost their minds. Oh, it's not his fault. Sam Darnold. What does Dan Orlovsky do? He gets up there and shows us 5 to 6 Sam Darnold plays, bad plays. But then what does he do? He explains how Kevin O'Connell could have helped. That's exactly what, I just don't have the time to do all that. I don't have the ability to get up there with a network and do that. Now, maybe I will, because I'm like, I should have done that, but I didn't. I just tweeted it out and I moved on to the post-game fan line. But the fact that that happened, I hope Kevin O'Connell, and I think Kevin O'Connell has learned from that. What did I do wrong in this? How could I have helped my quarterback in this? I think that's the key to this. I also think Dan Campbell's to blame for Jared Goff. I feel like, or Ben Johnson, sorry. I feel like Ben Johnson was asking too much of Jared Goff and expecting too many miracle plays versus I have one of the best running games in the NFL. I have some of the best weapons in the NFL. Why do I need to trick a team that I'm better than? And I think that's what the Lions lost. Like Ben Johnson, I felt like was trying to be the, like, you know, like it's one thing when you get the spotlight and then you go back in obscurity. Eventually that spotlight feels good. And you're like, I want that. Ben Johnson liked being in the spotlight. I think he loved all the media coverage. You know, when they did the fake Fumbarooski and everybody's talking about Ben Johnson's a madman. He's a maniac. Ben Johnson. And then a couple weeks go by and like, nobody's talking about Ben Johnson. Nobody cares about Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's like, all right, Leon, let me come up with a bunch of 17-second plays that people are going to be like, oh my goodness, you are super smart. He outcoached himself. He overdid it. And I think that's the key to this. Keep it simple, stupid when you know you're better. And then when it's time to like just do the basic stuff to like go opposite of where the strengths are, you do that. And that's where I think the Vikings can do that with a quarterback play. They have the weapons to get to that championship level. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, let's even toss Baltimore into the mix too, because they were one of the next best teams.
True.
It's a pretty clear correlation with all of them. Eagles, Commanders, Chiefs, Bills, Ravens. They all can design stuff for their quarterbacks, right? The quarterback is an extension of the running game. Very clear through line with all those teams. All the quarterback's mobility is a weapon. And it prevents you from getting killed by a good pass rush, like the Vikings encountered against the Rams and the Lions, where Darnold had no answer for that with his legs. I think we liked Darnold's mobility this year, but there's also there's Kirk here at the bottom. Then there's Darnold, kind of the average, but then there's the elites, and they can make something out of nothing. How many times did we watch that in championship weekend with Josh Allen making plays with his legs, Patrick Mahomes making plays with his legs, making throws while he's getting hit, and Xavier Worthy hauling him in? There's just different levels to this. So Ron, let me kick it back to you with this. Do you think that KOC will design runs for JJ McCarthy if he's the guy? Do you think that will be part of the offense, or will it still be about pocket passing, throwing in rhythm? What do you think?
I think he'll do some PRO, so pass run option. I do think that. I think he wanted to do it with Sam Darnold, but I don't know if he felt comfortable doing it with Sam Darnold. We know JJ McCarthy did that at Michigan. Like, he used his legs at Michigan a lot. Sneaky athletic is what people would call him. But he's done it. Now, again, younger, more athletic. How's that knee, though? That's the question. Like, is this the year to do that? Or is like, let's give him a full year under center, and then next year, let's come back with the arsenal. But I think there'll be some PRO stuff. So basically, fake the handoff, roll out. You got play action, nothing there, go. And I think that's the kind of the thought process. Hold it, get out, not third, boom, go and run. And because the line to run PRO and RPO like Michigan did, like the Bills do, like the Eagles do illegally. Your offensive line has to stay. And the reason I say that is a joke, people, but the Eagles offensive line, just watch, they're constantly down the field. They sometimes the refs throw the flag. Sometimes like, you know what, we could throw this flag all day. Just let it play on. But there's a lot of times where the offensive line thinks that the quarterback kept it because he held it so long and he still throws it, and they're past that 3-yard mark. They get like 1 to 2 yards. They're allowed to migrate like cows do when they're grazing. But then after that, if you get to that 3-yard mark, you're too far down the field. Even if you're not trying to go blocking, you're trying to just stay at 3 yards. You're too far because now you're giving an advantage to the guy catching the ball and you're down the field to block him. And they don't want that to happen. But yes, I can see, and I think Kevin O'Connell will have some PRO options where he has a pass, roll out. If it's not there, JJ, go. Like if you have the edge, go. Because there's a guy chasing you. Don't pull up. Don't throw it out of bounds. Go get us 5 yards, get out of bounds. Go get us 6 yards, slide, or dive head first so you don't give up the yardage by sliding because they start you where you start your slide. I can definitely see some plays drawn up for J.J. McCarthy. But speaking of the Vikings getting back to the Super Bowl, speaking of the Vikings and what is it going to take for them to win, we sit down with Robert Griffith, former Viking next, and he has a lot to say about that. Like he talks about like not only like him being in LA and what's going on with the mudslides and the fires and all that stuff, but he's also talking about the Minnesota Vikings and Harrison Smith. I love his advice for Harrison Smith. I love his heartfelt feelings about after that 13th year. Like that's a unicorn. People don't get to 13 years, and he has a lot of advice for Harrison Smith. Make sure you guys tune in next for that, and we'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Super Bowl 59 is on the horizon, just 12 days away. It's one game, 2 teams, and endless betting possibilities at FanDuel. You can make this game super exciting. You can predict the MVP. I like Saquon Barkley at plus 280 or Jalen Hurts at plus 370, getting a little better value there than on Mahomes. You can bet the coin toss. You can take the spread, Chiefs by 1.5 or Eagles plus 1.5. Feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. And if you're a new customer, you can place a $5 bet, and if you win it, you get $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl. So take care of that $5 bet, get it won before the Super Bowl, so you've got $200 in bonus bets to play around with. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet 5, get 200. That's the deal at FanDuel.com, an official partner of Super Bowl 59.
Well, now it's time for the Hanger Ron Johnson segment. I love getting guys on that played the position, played the sport. We got Robert Griffith joining us, former Minnesota Viking, but also a good friend. We've gone through getting our MBAs together. But this is a guy that I crossed paths with numerous times over the last couple of years through various media stuff, football stuff, alumni stuff. And Robert Griffith has all been an upstanding guy. And, first I want to, say, man, I'm sorry to hear everything going on in LA. I know that's your area. And give the people a little insight, man. What's been going on with you and everything down there with the wildfires?
Thank God we haven't been affected. Well, our house didn't burn down, but we have been just lending a hand when we can. I've helped people move their storage units, move houses into storage units and stuff just to kind of get out of the way. And thankfully, we've done 3 houses and 2 of them perished. So it's been really good work for us to just be able to lend a hand. But so that's kind of what I'm doing now, just helping out where I can. And a lot of friends have been affected, and now there's San Diego that's going on. So that's my hometown. So it's just a little bit of anxiety in the city and a little bit of tension, I guess. Just trying to help out as best as possible.
Yeah, and is there anything, like if people wanted to help you help others, are you doing anything with that? Like is there a link or anything that we can post and we'll make sure to tweet it in the tweet?
Yeah, there's there's the Heroes Benefit Network that I'm doing some work with. They're actually partnering with the company that I'm involved with also. It's a gaming company. They're using their gaming to raise money as donations to play, little games of skill that you can donate with, and all the I think 50% of the proceeds are going to not only the victims but helping the surrounding for the volunteers, etc. Right. because a lot of people are giving up their time right now, and so the money's going towards just really helping build LA from the inside out. And so I'm involved with that and just trying to help out where I can. So I've been really just helping my friends and, and a couple family members here, but I want to extend my hands and just my influence, I guess, wherever I can to the people. It's this city it's a lot of stuff that you thought is burned up now, right? So you go up and down the coast of Malibu, Moon Shadows is burned down. It's like that whole side just is decimated. So
man, that's crazy.
It's not the LA that people will remember.
Yeah, man, we're praying for you, man. Praying for everybody involved. I know it's not easy work to be done, but it has to be done. And so glad you're one of the people to do it. And I know you've always been a community guy. You've always been a guy to try to help others out. Like, even with getting our MBAs, with NFL alumni deal, I know you were one of the first people to reach back out to me, like, hey, you need to talk to so-and-so and whatever. So I know that's the kind of guy you are. And just looking at the way, your career has gone, looking at everything you've been through, when you see today's NFL, because I know we were talking about this, and when you see today's NFL, there's a lot of off the field stuff, on the field stuff. People were portrayed a certain way, but the one group of people that continues to get a lot of focus, which I don't think has ever been this bright, are NFL referees. And we've seen things happen to the Minnesota Vikings, field goals missed, from 1998 and on. And, you look at Sam Darnold's face mask being grabbed, not being called, or pass interference, or a guy hitting a guy 1 foot in bounds, and they still throw a flag saying unnecessary roughness. And one that I keep seeing now is this tush push. And the Philadelphia Eagles did it a bunch, to the point where the Commanders just got pissed off and said, screw it, we're just going to keep hitting you early. And I didn't realize this. I don't think anybody knew this was a rule. The referees have the ability to award a touchdown to whoever they want. I didn't know you could do that. I just figured just keep throwing the flag until it's not a flag. But clearly they're like, look, we're not going to play this game with y'all. If you want to keep doing this, we're just going to give them the touchdown and move on. I didn't know that was a rule. I didn't know that could be happening. That is crazy. But then you fast forward to the Chiefs-Bills, and there was a similar, it's 22-21. If Josh Allen converts this, they probably go down and score, or at worst, they drain more time off the clock and maybe kick a field goal. Who knows? But they get stopped. And Chris Jones, clearly you can see he's in the neutral zone. He's underneath the center, pushing the guard back to go through and grab Josh Allen. Well, there was no flag thrown. Also, there was a bad spot. When you see two different crews referee the same play different ways, and some people say unconscious bias, some people say it just happens, they don't know it. Like, what are your thoughts when you're watching that as a former player?
It's disheartening. I don't know about, well, let me put it this way. Every player on that field has had to sacrifice to get his body in that kind of position, win games. It's hard to be in the playoffs, and especially at the end. Championship games are not easy to come by. I was a little bit disappointed in the reffing, obviously, yesterday. Even the play where they went up, and it was, I call it a tie ball, but I thought the defender had more of the ball.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you give it to the offensive player, but it was I thought the ball hit the ground, first of all. I didn't think it was a catch or an interception.
It did hit the ground. Yeah.
It hit the ground, right? So that's one. But then you can clearly see the defender. It wasn't really a tie, but I get a tie goes to the offensive player. But I thought that those kind of calls were those changed the game. The same last week when Kansas City they had what they called was not a fumble. I mean, they said it was a pass when I forgot who it was, picked up the fumble and ran it in for a touchdown. Those are game altering plays that really changed, who goes on, right? Because I thought Buffalo could have had a chance and should have had a chance to win that game yesterday, and I thought they played well enough to win it.
Yeah, and I think they did. Like, I think they played well enough to win it. Watching it as it was going, I assumed tush push is impossible to stop. Like, unless you just don't have a strong quarterback or a quarterback tall enough to do it. But yeah, there were some questionable calls. Like ball hitting the ground, if it's not in the receiver's hands when it hits the ground and it ends up in the receiver's hands, it can't be a catch. Like it just can't be because it didn't survive the ground. It moved from the DB to the receiver. It was never trapped between the two. DB had it, hit the ground, ends up in Xavier Worthy's arms. But that should have been reversed by video evidence. They said the ball didn't move, and so they said it was in the grasp of both of them, and so they gave it to Worthy, which he didn't have it. And so the tush push, though, for me is the one where you see Chris Jones clearly helmet is above the blue line, which is the neutral zone. There's a blue and a yellow line on TV. Not a real indication of the neutral zone because it's just graphics, but it's pretty close. And his helmet clearly is over that line. Yeah. His shoulder he's playing the cock nose, for those that understand. He's turned to basically push the center sideways. He's not even playing head up. He's just like, look, I'm going to go sideways and knock the center off his path so that the next guy can come behind me and push as well. And he got away with it. He put his helmet in the center's basically shoulder and then was able to get through and grab the quarterback. But when you watch the snap, he's moving before the ball moves. He's moving on, which I think the tush push should be a silent count now, because now if you move before, you're screwed. But yeah, it's tough. It's a tough thing. You know, I understand that the Eagles, I think, do it the best, but I've never seen it where multiple flags result in a touchdown. Also, that should have just been a flag. First down, Bills, let it keep playing. Like, don't. And if not, just award them the first down, because you can't see where he was. Right. He had to have gotten a half a yard by just moving forward. And a lot of that is weird. But when you think about the way this season ended for the Minnesota Vikings, you know, they went into this as a 5 seed, 14-win season, all the hopes in the world that they should be, you know, at least in this game, at least in the NFC Championship game. Could have been in Philadelphia. You know, that was the goal, but they didn't do it. They weren't able to get there. They weren't able to make it work. Didn't work for them to get there. The other side of this, though, was you look at the Rams playing the Eagles. So it could have been Vikings-Rams or Vikings-Eagles. Vikings beat the Eagles and then host the NFC Championship game, you know, versus the Commanders, because the Commanders ended up beating the Lions. You know, so there's so many narratives about what could have happened, but it didn't happen. It did not happen. The Vikings, again, like I said, could have hosted an NFC Championship game because the Commanders beat the Lions. But when you're Harrison Smith, and you guys now, you know, he's at where you were, 13 years. What would it take for Robert Griffith, 13-year vet, to come back for year 14 or even come back for year 13? Because when Harrison Smith right now, Brian Flores is giving him all the words of like affirmation. Hey, whatever you need, take the time you need. Our goal is to do X, Y, and Z. We don't want you to be overworked. We want to, you know, like their goal wasn't even have him play as much this year, but he, you know, it was like, hey, like he's healthy and he's willing to do it. Let's do it. But when you're sitting back, a guy like Harrison Smith, because, you know, he got emotional at the end of the press conferences, and, you know, we had him on K-Fan and he teared up a little bit as well, talking about, you know, the season and the long career. And he knows that decision is coming at some point. What goes into that decision for a guy like Harrison Smith?
Well, I mean, your health, first, that should be, you know, the main, reason. But, you know, when you've had a great career like he's had, you know, for me, I know I didn't want to put any bad film out there. Like, I wanted to make sure that I was still the player that everybody remembered. And after my 13th year, well, during my 13th year, I just remember sleeping a lot, being tired, you know, needing more rest, need more recovery. And I felt like my skills were there, but I just knew that my body was telling me this is, you know, like, you got one more year maybe. And I think that's where the realization comes in, that this is a young man's sport and that 13 years is a great career. I mean, this guy had a he's had a great career. And, you know, I think that he should play one more year. I think from what I saw on the field, he has the ability to play one more year, but it's more of him saying yes to the mental part of it, right? So I'll give you an example. My 13th year, I was just like, man, we're going over cover 3? Like, I'm in training camp like, dude, cover 3? Like, I've been playing 28 years of football in a row. Like, I know cover 3. And it was me accepting the fact that I have to give the Nuggets. It's mandatory that I'm in the room because he's in the room the same way I was. You know it all. You already know it. You've seen it. I can play cover 3 anyway. You invert it, however you want. The weak side, like, let's do it. Right? I've been in all the spots on the field. So he feels the same way. So I would say it's more of, does he want to take that lap again mentally? And that's the part that people don't see. It's being in training camp. Yeah, your body's sore and all that, but just going over the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So can you get excited to go take another lap? Because once you're in it, he's going to be in it. But can you be excited to take another lap? And then I'll end with this. So my last year was in 2006. My last year on the field was in 2006. And the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl in 2008.
Yeah.
Right? So not saying I would have been on that team, but when I looked on that field, I saw that on that defense, it was like me and one other guy that wasn't there. Same guys.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at the Vikings, I'm like, okay, they have a championship team, I believe. A couple pieces here and there, people can argue, whatever. You don't want to be at home next year and then the team is there.
Right.
And so I would challenge him to really mentally, it's more mental than anything else. Yeah, physically, they'll give you your breaks whenever you need it, but mentally, do you want to take another lap, man? And for me, I wanted to take another lap. I just thought that it was going to be very difficult. I played so long for Denny Green, and I think that was when he left, I think it was going to be a harder, more difficult last lap for me. And so I think with him, he's got all of his years here in Minnesota. I would encourage him to think about taking another lap. So that's my advice. But
yeah, because when you look at it, he's, like you said, he's been in Minnesota for 13 years now, so he's pretty much a Minnesotan. I don't know if him and his wife are going to stay here after they're done, but he's pretty much a Minnesotan, you know.
Yes.
And you've seen the guys that, you know, are not from here but end up staying here and loving it. You know, you got a lot of the old veterans that are around town. They made a life here. Their families are here. You got, you know, guys that stay, you know, Kyle Rudolph. You know, guys like that, you know, came back to Minnesota, like not from here, but he's a Golden Domer, like Harrison Smith. So I could see Harrison Smith being like, well, look, you know, if he's here, plus, you know, his teammates that he played with the last couple of years are going to be here still with the Vikings. So does he want to be around to be able to go to those games and be at the Vikings games as an alumni guy? Or, like you said, does he want to strap it up for year 14? And you got a guy in J.J. McCarthy, you know, probably taking over as quarterback. You look at what Kevin O'Connell has done with quarterbacks the last couple of years. You look at the way the NFC North could potentially look next year, whereas the Minnesota Vikings are pretty much intact, and they'll be able to, like, they don't have a lot of draft capital, but the Detroit Lions are being decimated right now with coaches. Their offense and defensive coordinators are leaving. Antoine Randall sounds like he's leaving to follow and go to the Bears. It sounds like the other DB coach, I think, is leaving to follow Aaron Glenn to the Jets. So a lot of coaches are jumping ship. Players, free agents are talking about going to the Bears or the Jets to follow their coaches because of what they're trying to build and what they possibly could do with them there. And so that's the tough thing about the NFL is, like, once you get to the pinnacle, like the 49ers, eventually all your coaches, Robert Saleh, so and so, all start leaving for other opportunities, whether it works out or not, and they take coaches with them, and you never have the same thing again. Correct. Like, that's the name of this game, is not to stay in the same position for the rest of your life, unless you're an assistant coach that makes $3 to $4 million, and you're like, I'm comfortable making $3 to $4 million. I don't want to be the head coach. You know, there are some coordinators that people don't know are making $4 million, $3 million. So they're like,
true,
I can make $3 million and not have the headaches, and then eventually, if this head coach messes up, I get the job.
Right. When Ron, and to add that, with just one player leaving, it changes everything.
Yeah.
So you can imagine all of that happening. The Detroit Lions are going to be totally different next year. That's just what it is. So I think it made them a lot weaker obviously.
Definitely.
You know, you have all those personalities to create the chemistry that create that bottle of energy that we saw from Detroit. Was good this year. They were really good this year.
Yeah. Oh, unbeatable until they ran into a quarterback that could move. And that's where I think the Vikings with the JJ McCarthy could potentially, you know, be a threat next year. A guy like JJ McCarthy going to have a full year of rest on that knee, going to come back strong. And May, I think, is mini camp. So OTAs and mini camp, you start seeing that April, May OTA mini camp stuff. You have the offseason training that starts around March after the Super Bowl. Like, people don't know. People think NFL players have a break. You don't really have a break. You have time off without having to hit each other, but you don't really have a break. Right. You get your little month or two. So you'll get your January, February, a little bit of March. And then once because I was just over at the Edina Indoor Dome working with receivers that are entering the draft, and, you know, a couple tight ends, a couple receivers. There was quarterbacks there. You know, there's linemen there doing their deal with their guy. But, you know, it's like these players that are in the league are around this stuff too, because they're like, look, I might as well start training with my trainer too and getting in with these young rookies and seeing what I need to do. And a guy like JJ McCarthy could come in and flip the script and give the Vikings what they need. And you're right, Harrison Smith probably doesn't want to be at home or showing up to the games. And it's like the Vikings have a chance to make it. Also, though, and we know this can happen, the Vikings can say, hey, look, maybe if you want to sit out for a little bit and you want to come back when you're ready, because we have a spot for you. You know, and maybe he does that. Maybe he misses all of camps and all that stuff. But again, I don't know if that's the answer.
Know the defense. Yeah, look, you know the defense. He can come back week one. It's like, as long as you're in shape to play, I mean, come on, man. It's just football. It's instincts. It's reading your keys.
Correct.
It's having excellent eyes. Like most defenders that I know that I went through with that are great players have good or great exceptional eyes. And so just little points that he'll be able to, I mean, he's another coach in the room. I think him being able to implement the game plan and be able to say what's needed to be said in the huddle, the alerts, you know, it's just experience, man. That's what they know they get with him, and exceptional play. I mean, he's still playing well. I don't know how many picks he had at three or four this year, but, you know, he's averaging a couple 3 or 4 picks a year. And, you know, he's doing his thing, man. So, again, you know, I haven't had a chance to talk to him. Last time I saw him was when I was there for Legends, but I would just really just take the mental test with yourself and just, you know, confer with your wife. Look, this is the last year. This is what we're going to do. We're going to enjoy all of it. We're going to make it all, you know, a thing. And I'm really going to just relish in it, because that's what you really should do, especially if you're at one place your whole career.
Right.
Take the last lap, enjoy it. And that would be my advice. But look, man, everybody's body feels different. You know, I know how my body felt. And as a 190-pound guy, it was enough banging.
And when you look at the Minnesota Vikings, you know, again, having the same coaching staff, looks like everybody pretty much, I mean, there's a couple coaches getting interview opportunities, but it looks like everybody's coming back. But looking at your career, you know, you were a 2-time All-Pro, you were a Pro Bowler, you were Minnesota Vikings Man of the Year. You know, you served as, you know, the NFL PA or whatever liaison president for the Vikings. When you think about all the stuff, and you're around the front office guys, you know these guys, you play with these guys. Do you think there is something to this Brian Flores, like if he were to drop whatever deal he has with the Dolphins, that a team would interview him? Or do you think there's too many hot names? You know, you got Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, you know, but like even Liam Cohen, you know, with the Bucks, that wasn't a name I had on my bingo card that would, you know, be out there for a job over a Brian Flores. Knowing, and I think they both went to interview with the Jags, but Flores was let out the door. Cohen was let out the door. Then eventually they went back to Cohen. Do you think there's something to that, or like, what do you think it is? Because, you know, there's all these stigmas that follow people. And I'm just wondering, you know, could it be that? Could it be the Tua interview saying he was hard on me, you know?
Yeah. So you have to look at it like, okay, these are 32 owners. They're private corporations. Yeah. I don't know why people think it's a public corporation. No, these are private entities that own these businesses, and they're partners, And if one partner gets burned or there's a bad blood on one partner, then you don't have to deal with them. It's no different if I own a franchise, right? And I have a problem with one of my general managers. I don't have to hire him over at another location because he knows what he's doing.
Right.
And that's I'm an owner. That's just what it is. So I think that when you say stigma, I think that's what it is. There's no way Brian Flores should not be a head coach given what he's doing. I mean, he should be up for consideration, right? So
right.
It is what it is. I think he's going to be in this position for some time, maybe. Who knows, man? I mean, you never know how it all plans out. But unfortunately, the stigma is the stigma. It's just like a running back has the stigma of coughing up the ball. He's only going to be in the league for 3 or 4 years. He's going to bounce around a couple teams, and then he's done, right?
And speaking of running backs, the New York Giants took a stance, and the videos are coming out now because they decided to do Hard Knocks, which that was the dumbest decision they ever did. But all these conversations about Saquon Barkley now are coming out on video because people are going back to the footage and rewatching it, and it means differently now to them. But, you can see their GM, make a call, say, hey, Saquon, we're going to let you hit the market, but do you promise to give us a chance to match any deals? When you think about that, like, if you want him, why not just offer him big money? Like, why tell him to go see what the Eagles or somebody else want to give you versus just giving him – he said he wants to be a Giant. Why not just give him the money he's worth and give him the 30 – you gave Daniel Jones 160 versus giving Saquon Barkley 32. You could have gave him 32 to 37 for, I don't know, 2-3 years maybe. Give him 10 a year, throw some bonuses in there. But no, you want to give Daniel Jones 40 to 50 a year. And it bit him. They not only lost Daniel Jones because he's not good, they lost Barkley to now going to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Do you think that the Giants front office, because it's the coaches have been fired, but do you think the front office will ever recover? And why do you think this happens? Like, why do you think teams do that? Like, why wouldn't they just sign Saquon because they want him versus saying, hey, see what you're worth and then come back to us?
Well, I mean, a couple things. That's a multi-layered question. I'll answer it in 2 parts. So first part is the running back position obviously is not coveted anymore because now it's running back by committee.
Right.
And here's the problem. And, I got in the league in 1994. You had a starting running back, and then you have backup running backs.
Right.
And the starter got the run. We call him the bell cow and all that other, whatever people call him in college and stuff. But Marshall Faulk is not giving up any first team reps.
Right.
You understand? Like, no, those are my reps. Just like when I was in the league, you're not getting any of my first team reps. Now I'm sharing first team reps with this guy because I allowed the skill set or whatever it is to conflate the position. And so now it's running back by committee. You got a big guy that can run inside. You got a little guy to catch the ball. No, I'm doing it all. And so I think it diminished the value of the running back position. And then it didn't help that guys were getting hurt and not coming back the same.
Right.
And a lot of those things. And so that's one. But two, on the Saquon thing is it's football. You never can judge a man's heart. I've seen guys come back from horrific injuries, underdogs. I mean, guys like myself didn't get drafted. You never know who's going to be what.
Right.
And every year we get the first round. We get 15 guys that aren't worth the salt. And then we get another 20 in the second, third round that are all pros. That's just how it works. And so they made a mistake on Saquon because they didn't think that he had anything left. But Saquon got behind that big offensive line, and you see what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think honestly, he should have broke the record this year, personally.
Yeah. I mean, I think they wanted to get to this point though, because like so here's the one thing I noticed. After his one long run, he was out for 2 series massaging his calf. So I do think the rest was probably needed, and there was something else going on that we weren't. You know what I mean? They're not going to, they're not going to tell us what's really going on. Because the fact that he ran a long touchdown, went out for 2 series, was over there massaging his calf. I think there was some other stuff going on, maybe some soreness that they were nervous about, like whether it's Achilles, lower calf. So that's why I was nervous. Like at some point in this game against the Commanders, he's going to push off of it and it's going to hurt, or get hurt. So he made it through the whole game, looked healthy. He gets 2 weeks now before the Super Bowl. So I think that's going to be good enough for him and Jalen Hurts to get healthy, which I think they should win. I would like to see him win one just because of what he's been through with the Giants. And that would be an absolute just F you to the Giants. Like, hey, you didn't think I was good enough to do this anymore after an injury, blah, blah. But speaking of contracts,
he ran for 2 bills, man. I mean,
ran for 2,000 yards and still going. But when you think about contracts, the Minnesota Vikings, last one before we get out of here, Minnesota Vikings did sign Kevin O'Connell to a contract. Yeah. There was rumors that, he might get traded and all this other stuff, but they did do right by him. We don't know the numbers just yet, but if the Ben Johnson number is $13 million, my guess is the Kevin O'Connell number is probably around $9 million. And when you think about Kevin O'Connell being a Minnesota Viking for at least the next 4 to 5 years, what do you think that means for them as far as continuing to build under him and Kwesi?
I think stability. I mean, it's the right thing to do. I mean, look, he's got 2 back-to-back 14-win seasons. I mean, come on. He's doing his job. The players play very hard for him. They love to play for him. I think the Wilfs made a really wise decision to just get rid of that piece, right? So there is no indecision. There is no, you get a chance for him to really sit firmly in that seat and make decisions, and everybody that comes to the team or wants to come knows that he's going to be the guy there. It just I think it was the right decision. The Wilfs are doing everything right, man. They're setting the foundation to have a playoff team and win the Super Bowl, and that's really what it's about.
Yeah, man, and that's the key. You look at, like I said, the NFC North is going to change next year. We know that. Who knows if the Bears are going to maybe start to eat up some of these wins within the organization with Ben Johnson now, Randall L. Who knows if the Packers, they did not look good down the stretch. So who knows what they're going to look like. They had some internal issues with their receiving core, and their quarterbacks weren't on the same page. Minnesota Vikings didn't finish strong, but we know they still have the pieces to make the plays. And then the Detroit Lions lost every coach just about that was important to their team. So Dan Campbell's having to start all over again. But, I think he's trying to do the right thing. Sounds like he's promoting some people within. He's he's reached out to some people like Larry Foote, who's a Detroit native, who played at Michigan, went on to the Steelers, won some Super Bowls, went to the Bucks. And so as a coach, and so now he's, I don't know if Larry's going to get hired, but I know he was interviewed. And so I think, the line's gonna be different, but man, it's always fun every year at the end of the year when you get down to the Super Bowl. Before we get out of here, last prediction: who are you picking in the Super Bowl?
I see Saquon and those boys getting this one, man. They're running the ball way too well. I don't know all the names of the players, but number 77 and 68, those the left tackle and right guard, they are doing work. I see them throwing linebackers out the way. I think Saquon's going to run for 150 yards or more, and they'll control the game on the ground and win it. I think they're going to win it.
Yeah, and you're talking about Mailata. Jordan Mailata is the or Mailata. I forgot how you say it, but Jordan Mailata is that tackle. I do know that because I forgot where he's from, but I remember seeing him. But yeah, they're doing. The only thing though is Landon Dickerson was hurt. Their left guard, and so they moved some guys around. So like Cam Jurgens. Dickerson played, but he was kind of limping around. He came out. Cam Jurgens was out. So there were some guys, but they got Mekhi Becton, and then of course they have Lane Johnson. Like he's been a standout there for a while. So they just continue to reload. But I got the Eagles as well. I'm hoping they can pull out. I mean, I think Mahomes is doing what we've never seen before. Other than like a Brady or a Terry Bradshaw. If you go way back when, he's doing some prolific things, and happy for him as well. But
can't bet against them. But
I do want to see Saquon get it done. And I think that running game is strong. But Rob, man, I want to thank you for joining me, man. Have a good one out there. Stay safe as you continue to help people, and we'll make sure to post that message you put out there if people want to look to help. There's definitely some opportunities and charities or companies you can pay into that will help the relief efforts in LA. I'm Ron Johnson, and coming up next, we got the Daily 3. That's Robert Griffith, former Minnesota Viking defensive back, 13-year vet, and he had a word for Harrison Smith. So make sure you guys go back and check that one out. And we'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
We are brought to you today by Game Time. Attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. Same could be said times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5 for the Super Bowl. That's going to be an unforgettable experience in New Orleans this year. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. Filters out the fluff, shows you all the best deals on great seats. You can get Super Bowl tickets at Game Time. More locally, you can get to Target Center and watch the Wolves. Season best, 4 games over 500 now. Go watch the Wild. They haven't been great at home this year. Maybe you can get there and cheer them on. Help them out a little bit. They need you. Browse through the deals. Get the all-in price. Make sure that's toggled on so there's no hidden fees. Panoramic view from your seat. And the best customer service in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Well, now it's time for the Daily 3. That's 3 questions. Spend about a minute each today. Take it away, Sam.
All right, Ron, quick draft question for you. Vikings pick 24th. If you had to draft someone today, and again, free agency still has to happen, but if you had to draft someone today, which position would you address with the first round pick?
That's a tough one. With the first round pick, though, and we've had Randall McDaniel. You said guards are tough to do in the first round. I would probably go guard center. I think they're 24 is it going to be their pick? I would look at maybe guard center if there's a guy there that you think could be a piece to help you out, because we know Garrett Bradbury could move to guard. That's an option as well. Like if you get a center that you think is an All-American and he's there, and Garrett Bradbury can move over to guard, or there's a guard there that you think is worth it. But other than that, I probably want to solidify like that front seven. Like because I feel like the offense, like you got your tackles, you got your center theoretically. I think you need to finally get 2 guards, but you can probably get guards in free agency. I don't know if you want to get them in the draft this high. I would look at like a Jalen Carter type of defensive tackle, like a disruptor, a guy that can get there. So now you're not having to blitz every single time because you're getting something out of your 3 technique. And I think that's what I would look at, or your nose guard, like a beefeater, a guy that can take up space. I think Harrison Phillips and the guys they have are really good 3 techniques. I'm just not sure they're nose guards, like a Michael Pierce, a big 340-pound bowling ball that just eats up space. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I haven't dug in too much to that part of the class yet. I did hear yesterday from Luke Inman that Tyler Booker is like the best guard in the class from Alabama, 20 years old. Apparently that's the guard you want if you went the guard route. Okay. But I also like the defensive tackle route. Anthony Edwards question for you.
Yeah.
Chris Finch wasn't super happy with him and the team last night. They kind of struggled to put away a Hawks team that didn't have anyone playing. But Anthony Edwards is shooting a career best 42% from 3. He leads the league by a bunch in 3-pointers made. Ron, are you liking Ant's reliance on the 3-point shot this year?
I do. I think what that does is, like, if they happen to make the playoffs, we don't know what's going to happen. If they happen to make the playoffs, then I like it, because I feel like that turns around the opportunity to spread the floor out. Like if you can shoot the 3, guys have to guard you further out. When you're driving by guys nonstop and you're relying on dunks, high flying plays, stuff like that, the lane gets condensed. But like if you notice with the Warriors, when they were hot, floor was wide open. So that's why guys like Andrew Wiggins were successful, because they didn't have a lot of deterrence in the lane. Like everybody was worried about the 3. And so I think if Anthony Edwards keeps working at it, and this is not like a gimmick, because you can't shoot this high for this long and to be a gimmick. Like clearly he's feeling it. He's worked on it. And so I think that's a huge part to his game, because it does allow, now the pump fake is viable and he can drive by guys and shoot a shorter shot. So yeah, I think in order for him to grow and be a great, I think it is. But the fact that he's shooting this well, and I hate to do this, and Cat looked as good as he looked when he was healthy, I struggle with the trade. I do now. Like I was for offensive power and consistency under the basket, but we're not even getting that. Like Julius Randle wants to be a big guard. And so I struggle now, because the way he's shooting, I think Cat would have fit in great with that, as far as keeping the floor spread and then Cat having an open lane to just drive when he wants to drive. And Cat picked and chose when he drove, versus Julius Randle. I feel like every time he touches it, he's going to drive the ball.
if there's a stat out there, I'd like to know about it by the amount you miss your shots by, because Julius Randle's misses, man, are not even close. It's bricks. It's like short range, off balance bricks that are missing the rim, hitting the backboard, clunking off the front of the iron. Just not pretty basketball with my guy Julius. All right, last one. After seeing Saquon Barkley's massive season, Ron, do you think that he's changed the game for teams' approach to running backs? Do you think they'll place a greater value on having an elite running back on their roster going forward?
I think the top 5 running backs will. I think guys like him, Bijan Robinson, Gibbs, even Montgomery, I guess you can throw in that. But see, the problem with the Lions is you got both of them. So one of them is not going to get paid. One of them is going to have to go eventually. And that's what happens in this league. Like Robert Griffith talked about with the dual head running back, he said that, when back in the day, Adrian Peterson was the back. He got all the carries and then he had a backup. Now it's a running back by committee who's doing better. Like the Vikings kind of had a one guy with Aaron Jones and then we had a backup. But, some of these teams like the Chiefs, like the Eagles, the Eagles do have Saquon, but they were bringing other running backs in Gainwell. But I think teams will put a little bit priority on. The problem is it's not 32 running backs out there. Like you can't put a priority on it when it's not a guy out there. But trying to get an elite guy, if you have them, I think more teams will stay with their guy. I think the Giants have showed the world, like, if you have a diamond, don't let it go out there. Like, don't put the diamond out for other people to bid on, because that's and it's not in the rough. That thing was just a diamond. Like, we knew how good he was. The Giants just played chicken and they lost. They played roulette and it didn't spin on the color they chose. They chose green. Of course they did. And that's what the Giants do. And, it landed on black. And the Eagles were like, look, we're going to bet on black. And so that was what they did. And they hit on it. Black, and they were specific. They went with black 26, right, with Saquon. And so that's exactly what hit. And I don't even know if that's the real thing on the roulette wheel. If it is, that's a cold line. But when you think about what they did, I think they will. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think the teams will put a emphasis? And again, everybody can't do it, but do you think they will?
Well, I'm just trying to look at a roulette wheel first. Black 26. That is black. Yes.
Yeah, see, there we go. So they hit on it. And the Eagles hit on black 26. But yeah, because that's the thing. It is a roulette. You're playing roulette with your running backs. Like, we know this. People have paid running backs and it didn't work out. So I think that's the problem. Is like, is this a trend or is this a mirage? Like, what happens next year? Because we know Saquon was super motivated this year to do what he did. He was super pissed off with all the way the Giants treated him, and how now people are seeing these conversations. Him saying, like, I want to be a Giant, and them like, well, let's go see what's out there, man. And then, you promise you'll come back? Like, you promise you will come back? This is a business, bro. Like, what do you mean? Do you promise I'm gonna come back? Like, give me my money. No, okay. And so do you think that? Like, where do you think that's standing? Like, do you think the Vikings see this and say, oh, we got to keep Aaron Jones?
Well, I think that the Vikings have yet to have an even good running game in the Kevin O'Connell era. I thought Aaron Jones was the best they've had yet, but he was kind of banged up at the end of the year. I think that what's going to happen is, now, I think for a while, running backs were sort of iced out of the first round of the draft. Now, don't take a running back early, but then Gibbs came around, Bijan, Barkley. I think that it's now going to be more of a priority higher in the draft if there is a good prospect, because if you can stumble into a Barkley-like prospect or a Gibbs-like prospect, you get cheap for 4 years. I think teams are really going to value that piece of it. So that I think is going to be the big change. And then if someone does happen to hit free agency like a Barkley, there's going to be a bidding war for services. He's not going to get a bargain deal, kind of like he did in Philadelphia, honestly. I mean, he didn't make that much money for his talent. It's kind of insane. So
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. He has incentives. He's going to get paid. But other than that, I don't know if the Eagles are going to want to offer him a big contract. I mean, they'd be dumb if they don't. But they have a lot of weapons. Like, I think running backs, this might be what it is. It becomes like a rent a running back. Like, that's going to be the thing. We're going to rent a running back. We're going to go find the best guy and we'll rent him for, I don't know, $10 million. And then he's done. And he gives us a Super Bowl and we move on to the next guy. Like, I just don't see people willing to do what they used to do, which like Adrian Peterson type guys. Like, here's here's 15 million for 5 years, 15 million every year for 5 years. Like, you're not going to see those type of contracts. You'll see with quarterbacks, you'll see with receivers, you'll see it with I think that's it. Like, you might see a corner, like a top corner might ask for big money like that. But like, even Antoine Winfield was at 81 million is the top pay, or 84 million is the top paid guy for safeties. Like, I just don't see a position getting to 100 million besides receivers and quarterbacks. And that's just the league we're in right now. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. But I'm Ron Johnson, Sam Ekstrom. We'll be back next week to talk about our Super Bowl predictions. Super Bowl's getting closer and closer. We'll also probably talk about this Pro Bowl. We'll see if it was good or not. There's new formats coming up every year. They always trying to change. I saw the All-Star game just changed their format too. Who knows if it'll work for the NBA, because I know the NFL is kind of working. Guys aren't getting hurt and guys are actually showing up to have fun. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. And we'll be back next week. But make sure you guys check out all of our other shows. The Football Party with Arif Hassan, Luke Inman, Luke Bryan, and Sam Ekstrom, and myself on Thursdays. You got them on Wednesdays with our Football Party as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. All you need is an email address, and it's free of charge. Well, thank you guys. Have a great day.